Is everybody ready? We are 1283. Let's try to get to 1350 today. And now we're beginning to get to a pretty reasonable level. Let's do it. Okay, 1400. That is our first 1400 that we are facing. Let me just close chess base 1 sec so my computer doesn't freeze. All right, so no need to change any open. Okay, so he's playing the philidor. We know how to respond to the philidor. We open up the center. Thank you, Bearded Harry Selden. Okay, so in this position, how do we develop our pieces? What do we do? And there is a little trap here that, well, scratch that off the record. In the meantime, can somebody tell me how should we continue the development of our pieces? Where do our bishops belong is really what I'm asking, because our knights are already developed. So bishop c4 is the move that we know we want to play. Now, one pro tip, in these kinds of positions, there is this idea that black has of capturing on e4, and when we capture the knight, he goes d5 and he wins back the piece. How do we avoid that without weakening any of our other pieces? Like, I don't want to play f3 because I just don't like playing f3. So one thing that you can often do, as Potato for President is saying, is go bishop b3 and tuck the bishop away, safe, and no longer do we have knight takes c4. We can proceed with our development in castle. He's probably going to go b5. Not too scary. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we can do, but let's not rediscover the wheel. Let's continue our development, and how can we do that? Bishop, well, bishop f4 kind of stares at the rook. I like rook e1. I love rook e1, but there's one problem. He's threatening c5. He is threatening to win our bishop. We didn't ask ourselves what he wants. Right? He wants to go c5 and c4 and win our bishop. How do we defend against that? What do we do? Are we screwed? a3 is possible, but a little bit too passive. And I'll talk about this moment at length after the game. The move that I'm going to play is bishop out to d5. And I will explain the hell out of this move after the game. This is a very important moment, actually. Very instructive. Now, what do we take with? We can take with either piece. Taking with a pawn establishes a potential outpost on c6. Taking with the knight lands the knight on a very nice central square. It's a matter of taste, but I like playing with pieces, so let's take with the knight. All right, bishop b7. Now, what I notice here is that our pieces are very nicely centralized. So I'm already thinking in the direction of how can I attack even further. And the move bishop b7 contains a hidden drawback. The bishop relinquishes its control over one particular square. Which square is that? Bingo! Good job, Dr. Lono. And guess what? This queen's going to come out to g4, and we are going to start harassing him along that g file. Let's get out to g4. Now, a good player would go king h8 here in order to escape the pin. All right. He does this. All right, we'll take back. Now our pawn is sort of hanging over his position. All right, what do we do here? How do we proceed? Yeah, bishop h6 is good, but he does have a defense to that. Let's see if he finds it. The defense is knight e5 and knight g6, and he intercepts our control over the g file. We'll still have a good position. I mean, we'll still have a long-lasting attack for the most part, but again, we've played some very underrated folks, so I'm quite impressed. Okay, g6, and he doesn't find it. He gives up the exchange, and he's going to be in very big trouble. He's just down a full exchange. Now, here's the thing I want to emphasize. When you put on the board a tactic like this, you should probably be looking for another tactic to follow. And I see a way that we can simplify the position and get rid of his knight, because I don't want to allow his knight to come to e5 and establish itself in the center. So what we're going to do is we're going to go knight h6, check. Okay, he doesn't even realize that he could have taken that knight, so he goes king g7. He's wasting time. All right, now the next step, a lot of people I know want to grab this pawn. But in the spirit of how we have played, let us instead bring all of our pieces into the game. There's a couple of things that we can do. We can go c3, but I'm not even going to worry about that pawn. Let's go rook e1. All right, if he takes our pawn, we're going to go rook e7, and then we're going to have a queen and a rook on the 7th rank, and that's a pretty difficult situation for him to deal with. It doesn't matter. Rook fe1, okay. It really doesn't matter. Rook fe1, rook a1, probably the same thing in that scenario. Now we're going to take the pawn to make a little space for the rook. Okay, so he's making a very instructive tactical mistake. I always say the queen is the worst defender of another piece. All right, the queen is the worst defender of another piece because the queen is very easy to dislodge, and we can do that. Note this tactic down. Rook takes f7, distracting the queen, and we're going to take his rook. We're basically simplifying. We're winning a pawn, and the rest is going to be a simple matter of converting an extra exchange. So I want people to understand that when I say we don't care about pawns, don't take that literally in the sense that we never take free pawns. I love pawns just like the next guy over. It's just that you have to put that in perspective. You have to realize when you go for the material and when you go for the attack. And people tend to overestimate material just as a matter of course. So here what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to centralize our queen. In such a position, it's a very good idea to centralize the queen because we defend c2. The queen is just sort of supervising the whole board. Now, how are we going to actually win this game? There's a couple of steps. The first step is to do what? What are we missing in this position? One very important component. Hello, let's get this guy involved, right? If this guy isn't involved, it's going to be hard to win. Let's involve. Now, the second step is going to be make luft for the king. Make some air for the king. I don't want to have to deal with stupid back rank threats, when I'm lifting my rook up. Now, you might look at this move and say, wait a second, aren't you blocking the rook lift to h3? Yes, I am, but that's not the only rook lift, and you want to be very careful about getting fixated on one particular idea. Now I'm going to go king g2. And the move king g2 prepares, well, what does it prepare? It doesn't really prepare anything. I'm just unpinning myself. Maybe preparing f4, although I'd be a little bit cautious about weakening my king like this. Now, in such situations when black kind of has a bit of a fortress, right? Everything is protected. How do we actually proceed? How do we soften him up? Using pawns is an incredibly good method of sort of softening your opponent up, right? Getting the pieces off of the good squares. Now, queen a5 makes our job very easy because what move is now very strong? Now, f4 is very strong because we're going to win d6, and we're going to win the game because now the rook comes into d7, and the attack is just unfolding in full strength. The move h4, by the way, there was also good. Now, I want to put the rook on d7, okay? Fact 1. Fact 2, I can't do it immediately, so let's go here first. If he goes queen b7 check, we'll just block with the queen. Our queen trade is obviously in very much agreeable to us, given that we're up in exchange in 2 pawns. If he doesn't trade queens, he's going to succumb to this check on d7, so he does. How do we win this position? There's many ways of doing it. You guys know that the fundamental way of winning a position like this is to create a pass pawn. Identify the pass pawn you want to create and then create it. The pass pawn that I want to create is the f pawn, right? I want to go g4 and f5 because that's where my pawn majority is. No rocket science, right? I can even pre-move f5. Once we create the extra pawn, the pass pawn, we can use that pass pawn kind of as a decoy for black's king. Black's king is tied down to this pawn. Then we bring our king over and collect the other pawn, and then we promote pawns on the other side of the board. The simplest way of doing that is actually just to sack the exchange back and pick off this pawn, and the rest is very simple. This is a theoretical endgame. We have actually 2 pawns. It would be winning even with just the c pawn. And here we can win this just by going c7. And now, could somebody tell me? Now, without the a pawn, c7 would have been a huge mistake. But what do we do here? How does white actually win? How does white actually win here? Yeah, we need to push that pawn. And the rest is going to be, whoa. The rest is going to be very simple. Don't worry, guys. Hopefully I convince people that you're in good hands. With 13 seconds, I'll be able to deliver the checkmate. I assume the people saying time have only just arrived. Okay, I don't think our opponent is too happy right now. Or he's trying to lull me to sleep. In the meantime, I'm going to munch on a... I won't pre-move because I don't want to risk stalemating him. When you pre-move a sequence of 10, 12 moves, there's always a risk that you accidentally stalemate him at the end. And you certainly don't want that. I don't know. I mean, the ratings are refunded. I will remind everybody here. 100 bits from J-Root. That's what we're talking about. Okay. A reminder that we play 3 games at a time. We play 3 games at a time. And then I will explain each of the 3 just to keep things rolling pretty smoothly. Let's go on with the next one. And, 1400s, I mean, our opponents are already pretty good. All right, Ziskar, let's play another Sicilian. And the Sicilian that we have been playing is the Accelerated. All right, Accelerated Dragon. And the idea is we fianchetto the bishop. Now, he takes on c6. Dompa, first of all, I can read lowercase. Second of all, as I said, I play 3 games at a time. And then I go through each game in detail and answer all questions, okay? Okay, so actually taking on c6 is already kind of a mistake because what it does is that it opens the b file for us, and it also helps us prepare the move d5. So Nick Dim, thank you for the prime. Could somebody tell me, do we want to trade bishops? And if not, how do we resist the bishop trade here? What do we do? Yeah, clearly we don't want to do that, and we do that by developing knight f6. Very good. The move e5 would be very, very bad because it would weaken the d6 square. Okay, here we go again with f3. f3 is the kind of move people just kind of make, but it's incredibly weakening. All right, let's castle. Let's develop. Okay, bishop c4 walks right into what move? This walks right into a move that you guys should be making automatically, which is d5, right? Occupying the center, cd, ed, cd. And I assume he's going to drop his bishop back. And that will lead us to a very instructive moment. Now, by the way, if he tries to take our knight and then take our pawn, we don't even have to worry about that, right? We can move our rook then, and he won't be able to defend b2. I'll explain that after the game. Okay, bishop d3. That's actually a good move. 1 sec, I'm writing some stuff down. Okay. What do we want to do in this position? How do we play? Well, our first order of business, right, is to prevent him from castling. If we can prevent him from castling and keep his king in the center, we're going to increase our chances of a quick attack. I'm not sure why people want queen d6. Yeah, the move is queen b6, stopping him from castling. Now, I might not permanently prevent him from castling, but in the time that he takes trying to get my queen away from b6, if that makes sense to everybody, I am going to spend that time expanding in the center so that even if he manages to castle, which the more I look at this position is relatively unlikely, even if he manages to castle, he's going to be dealing with a hot mess in the center of the board. So that's why Ben Feingold says never play f3. There's a reason behind that. f3 is one of the most weakening moves on the chessboard. Now, one thing that you want to do when you look at a position like this is you want to be very flexible, right? Even though the queen is preventing him from castle, well, never mind. Queen c1. I'll talk about that afterwards. Thread and doof. Okay. So I mentioned that we want to spend the time that he takes trying to castle expanding in the center. So expanding in the center, what does that mean? What does it mean to expand in the center? The move d4 comes to mind, but take a careful look at this move. The move d4 closes off the queen's diagonal, which helps him castle. The move is e5. Now e5, if he would have taken on e5, we would have pinned his bishop with devastating effect. All right. It's very clear to me what he wants to do. He wants to go bishop e3. But he's not in time because we are now ready to just rampage him in the center. Let's go, e4. All right, this is the beauty also of this bishop, right? Now, we can actually take with either the knight or the pawn. Let's take with the pawn just to preserve simplicity. But we could have actually taken with the knight. That would have been a very strong move. And now we have a crushing move. Can somebody find for me this crushing move? Yeah, Malcolm F. Tucker is on a roll. The move is knight g4. Now, how do I see this move? Well, I see this move because I see what his threat is. What is white's intention? His intention is clearly to play bishop e3. That's why he put his queen on c1, so that he can castle. So how can we stop bishop e3 in a way that's conducive to our attacking aims, particularly noticing that our bishop, if opened, operates with devastating effect, attacking that b2 pawn. And so we come to the move knight g4, which fulfills all of these goals at once. This is going to be just absolutely crushing. If h3, then not only can we take on b2, creating an equal or stronger threat against the queen, we can also play queen f2 check with mate to follow. If h3, I would give the check on f2 and then play e3. This is where intuition comes into play, right? You have to be okay with not knowing exactly how you're going to checkmate white here. I don't even see the exact checkmate, but I know it's there. Because look at the position. I mean, look at white's pieces. There's just no way that this is not going to result either in checkmate or in grievous loss of material. And intuition is the ability to make that judgment call and not spend, 2 of your 3 minutes trying to work out exactly how the checkmate is going to happen. What do we do here? He's gone rook f1, he's prevented queen f2, but let's not forget about our other set of ideas. Let's not forget that sometimes the simplest way of converting a position is just to win a bunch of material. That's like life insurance. Something goes wrong in the attack, you're still up a rook, all right? There's no shame in taking the time to, help yourself to an all-you-can-eat buffet consisting of white's pieces, all right? So let's see what he does, but I'm anticipating queen d1, bishop a1, and then he might resign. Yeah, this is a nice attack. I mean, there's nothing, we didn't do anything special. We just prevented him from castling, and the rest sort of followed very naturally. No, this was not Pepega at all. Actually, this was a very sensible idea that our opponent came up with in a difficult spot. So let's give credit where credit is due. But it's just that he didn't have enough time to do it because the attack was just way too fast. E3 here, Chewy? You mean E3 in this position? E3, maybe he goes bishop c3. I'm not sure if that's convincing. Because E3 blunts the queen. We want the queen to sort of have access to these squares, right? And the move E3, while it looks very impressive, it's actually, I guess, now it's obviously still completely winning, let's be clear. But I don't know, I think it's a little less convincing. And when you see the chance to win like a full rook, you want to go for it, right? Even if you think you might see checkmate, this is the safe option, and there's nothing wrong with that. Man, this guy too is letting his clock run out. Is there some sort of conspiracy? Yeah, Aplos95 says e3 after queen d1. Again, possible, as is knight e3, but why? Why bother calculating these variations when I can just take a full rook and then worry about e3 or whatnot? Yeah, these guys are mauling pretty hard indeed. But we're having a good discussion about the position, so... There we go. Resigned. And we are 1300. Okay, so one more game, and then I will go through and explain all 3 of these games in detail. And 1368. So we are facing pretty decent opposition. He aborts. All right, great. I guess another one. No, it's certainly not a punishment. Let me be very clear, guys. Letting your clock run down is entirely within your rights. You can do whatever you want with your time. Whatever you want. If you want to sit for 5 minutes on move 3, you can sit for 5 minutes on move 3. All right, let's distinguish between the rules and ethical or unethical behavior. So, I don't really mind it. All right, Yera 84. So again, we have e5, and we've played mostly... Okay, so d5 we have faced once. This is called the Elephant Gambit. It's actually not that bad. And I've mentioned this before. These gambits should be taken seriously. They are not terrible. So we're going to say, okay, bishop g4 is pretty bad. Now, how do we deal with a move like this? Because this sets a pin to the knight, and there's a typical reaction to this pin that we can sort of just do and ask him a question. That's what my coach would say about such a move? Travman, yeah, we ask him a question. What is he going to do with this bishop? Because if he plays bishop h5, then we will always have the possibility of unpinning ourselves with g4. I don't want to go g4 immediately. That's a little bit too compromising in the opening. Let's just develop. All right, knight c3. This protects the pawn on d5, and it stops the move e4. He plays it anyway, but we're going to take. I suppose he wants to take on, well, okay. This is a typical mistake. He probably thinks he's winning our knight, but that's just not how it works because we have what defensive resource here? Thank you, Viking Thomas, for the tier 1. Appreciate it. Well, be careful about the move d3 because the move d3 allows f5 winning the knight. So the move is queen e2. We bring our heavy hitter onto the e file so that if he plays f5, which he probably will, stubbornly, then we can move our knight away. Now, yes, this would... Oh, no, he takes queen, bishop takes f3. Now, here, we want to be very disciplined about calculation. I think I know what most people are going to say, which is that we should take with a pawn. But let's look a little bit deeper, all right? And this is where we start violating some of the sort of principles that guided us earlier. That's how you get better. We're going to take with a queen. And the reason we're going to take with a queen is because this pin is unexploitable. The queen on f3 stops him from playing f5. And we are going to unpin ourselves on the very next move. And what we're going to do is preserve the integrity of our kingside pawn structure, which is actually very important. We could have played gf. We're still much better. But I just want to show that pins aren't always that dangerous, right? Okay, knight f6. He's attacking our knight on e4. Again, the instinct is to play d3. But what if we wanted to protect the knight and simultaneously develop our kingside? Bishop d3. But aren't you blocking in the c1 bishop? Isn't that what you told us not to do? Well, I am, but here's the thing. It's a higher priority to develop the kingside right now. We will deal with this bishop. We're going to fianchetto it, right? No problem. But right now, it's very important to develop our kingside so that we make him pay for keeping his queen on the e-file. Does that make sense? Right? It's the priorities, it's the hierarchy, and that's where chess gets hard. Hopefully, the way I'm explaining things makes sense. So now we reap the rewards of quickly developing our kingside because his king is going to get caught in the crossfire. All right. Now he's going to go... Oh, ladies and gentlemen. No, we have some sexy moves here. Okay. So knight e7. Let's break down exactly what the drawback of this move is. Exactly what we... No, don't rush. Let's be disciplined, all right? Knight, I know a lot of people want to throw the knight out, but that doesn't do anything. What this move does, number one, is block the bishop. Number two, it exposes the pawn on f7. Look at this pawn for a second. How can we attack this pawn? There's two ways. Two ways of attacking the pawn. Name one of them. Bishop c4 is one. Knight g5 is the other. Let's go bishop c4, because if I know what he will do, we have a really cool idea that we're going to put on the board. If he plays f6 or if he plays f5, the idea will be the same, and it's actually really cool after f5. Let's hope he plays f5, folks. Let's just pray that he... Okay, he's gone f6. Now, the king on e8, right? If you look at it very carefully, it only has one escape square. And so, if we take that escape square away, then it's going to be checkmate after gf, knight takes f6. Okay, it's not like mind-blowing, oh, and he allows us to do it. So it is a pretty cool checkmate, though. The bishop and the knight working together, taking away the remaining two squares from the king. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And so we see we won this entire game without developing our queenside. That is the epitome of violating some rules in order to reap the rewards in other ways. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, that was nice. Of course, he set us up for it. By the way, had he gone f5, we could have still taken on f5 with the queen. And after knight takes f5, it may appear that his king has more space, but where is the checkmate here? Where is the checkmate? And in fact, the checkmate doesn't change. It's still knight f6. This is a double check, a discovered double check, this literal strongest check in chess. And e7, of course, is covered now by our rook. So d7 and f7, as before, are covered by the knight and the bishop, respectively. All right. So there's just nothing he can do to defend f7. All right. So this game, while we're on it, we can just complete the analysis. Just one thing I wanted to make clear. In this position, right, I saw that a lot of people wanted to go bishop b2. Do not be afraid of pins, all right? Some pins are dangerous, some pins are not. Here is a good way of evaluating whether a pin is dangerous, all right? If the pinned piece is defended by a pawn, generally speaking, the pin is not going to be terribly dangerous, at least in the sense that you have a couple of moves. Like, you don't have the burning necessity to get rid of the pin. If the pinned piece is not protected by a pawn, then most likely the pin is going to be a lot more dangerous and you need to attend to it with a far greater sense of urgency. Again, this is very general. Here we see that there is a pawn on g2 that's nicely protecting the knight. So we have no need to cripple our position and give up d5 just to get rid of the pin as quickly as possible. All right, that's why I played the move knight c3, because he's not threatening anything. And by the way, even if we had done something random and he'd gone e4, this doesn't actually win the knight. Why not? Why doesn't this win the knight? And this is a very typical technique. Now, I played a pretty bad random move because, as it turns out, so there's actually two reasons. One is queen e2 counterpinning the pawn, but the main reason is g4 counter-attacking the bishop. You'll see this all the time in a lot of different openings where we counterattack the pinned piece precisely in this way or on the other side of the board. Now, in this case, the funny thing is black still wins a piece by going queen e7. It's basically checkmate. You have to give the bishop up. But that's not what I was trying to illustrate. I was just trying to show the technique. Thank you, this guy Hags. And before I go on, I just wanted to take a chance to take a second. We've got 2,500 viewers, and the support today has been unbelievable, as it has been for days and days and days, weeks and weeks. I am honored to have this community, so thank you guys for the support. We are almost at 2,500 subs. I would never have imagined that to be the case, so thank you for making my job easier. It's really a pleasure. So just, again, huge shout out to everybody. And as I speak, I'm pressuring people. Bearded Hari Seldon with 500 bits. Thank you so much. And now let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go back to the speedrun. And I hope I explained the pinning idea. Well, this is... Now people are going to make me blush, so... Now people are going to make me blush. But thank you. Chess TV. I think we're on Chess TV, which is awesome. Okay. So that's why the pin was not dangerous. We defend it with queen e2. And Brad522, thank you for the prime. And this move queen takes f3, that is like the essence of what it means to know the rules so well that you know when to violate them. This pin is dangerous because the knight is not defended by a pawn, but it just so turns out that he cannot attack the knight with a pawn because that square is now defended by the queen. And then this move bishop d3, right? You're blocking the bishop on c1. What are you doing? Well, I am blocking the bishop on c1, but because he's got his queen and his king on the same file, the absolute top priority right now is to get a rook to e1. That is the plan, and so we want to do that as quickly as possible. And so we want to avoid... We don't care about the niceties. We'll take care of this bishop later, all right? I think there is a donate command. Let me check. Oh, I thought there should have been. I don't know what the issue is, but there should be a button on my stream. I don't want to push it into anyone's face. Anyway, J-Root, thank you for the 500 bits. Okay, so on to the first game of today's speedrun, which is very combative. This was the Philidor game. And Travman925, here we go again. 4 a.m. hype, gift and 5 to the community. 6-point FX Fighter, Parakovsky, Anjesh, and Acrylic. I'm not on Chess TV, they're simply organically 2,500 viewers. I am honored. Thank you, Travman. Amazing stuff going on, as always. Wow, we are on the doorstep of Grandmasterdom in terms of the number of subs. So bishop c4, castles. Now I wanted to explain what I meant when I explained that trick earlier. Castles, there's knight takes c4 and d5, all right? And this forks the bishop and the knight, and by evaporating the center, that is obviously in black's favor, right? Because white's got more control over the center than black does. This helps black free himself. So therefore, we played bishop b3 in order to prevent knight takes c4. This would no longer be a fork, right? Now, our opponent played in a very sneaky way, the move b5. Now, whenever your opponent is doing something like that, expanding on a side of the board, you always want to be careful, particularly in e4 openings, when you have the bishop on this diagonal, about the Noah's Ark trap, or however it's called, where the c-pawn advances with tempo to c4, traps the bishop. That is actually a common technique in a lot of different openings, not only in the philidor, but one opening that comes to mind right off the bat is the Ruy Lopez. In the Ruy Lopez, there is a line. If white goes d4, I'm just going to very quickly make the moves here. That's not important right now. White plays queen takes d4. You can see the similarities. There's a bishop on b3, c5. Now, it looks like white's fine because of queen d5. He's attacking the rook and attacking f7, but black is already winning a piece here. Bishop e6, queen c6 check, bishop back to d7, queen to d5. White again is threatening checkmate, but he's no longer attacking the rook, and so black plays c4, intercepting the bishop and trapping it. I think this is called the Noah's Ark trap, or Capablanca's trap. So we can see the parallel here. He's gone b5, he wants to go c5, c4, and most people's response to that would be, let's go a3, let's create a hole for the bishop. That's fine, but my worry with that is that look at this miserable bishop. I mean, in order to get it out of the cage, you'll have to dynamite some of these pawns, and that's always dangerous because dynamiting pawns involves pushing your own pawns, and pushing your own pawns involves leaving pieces unprotected. So something like this could happen. All right, let's dynamite. Oh, crap. The knight on c3 is unprotected. All right. So the way that we decided to deal with this is actually to bring the bishop in front of the potential pawn chain, right? And while we're at it, we're also attacking the rook, okay? So if he'd gone rook a7 here, we could have just gone about our business. And if he goes c5, all right, our bishop is on d5, perfectly placed. He can take it, but then it'll be replaced by an outpost knight. Okay, so he takes, and we took with the knight. Now, I wanted to briefly explain why is it a good idea also to take with a pawn, all right? Because to some people, I understand that this is not intuitive, but the thing is, if you look at this pawn on d5, it essentially secures a potential outpost for the knight on c6. And I understand that the c6 square is currently protected, but black might develop the desire to develop his knight one day, and so knight c6 becomes very much possible, and this pawn just clamps down on black's position. Black also can't go c5 because of en passant. All right. Clifton Beast, if c6, then you can actually two defenders and only two attackers, one defender. You can just take the pawn with either your knight or your bishop, and you'll just be up a pawn. All right. So we decided to take with the knight because that's an outpost. Knight f5 and queen g4 is very natural, bringing pieces into the game. And now bishop h6 is a very typical tactical idea, pinning, using the pin. And our opponent could have defended by playing knight e5 and knight g6, basically shielding the g file with the knight, forcing our bishop back. And black is actually completely fine here, particularly since our b2 pawn is hanging. But we took a risk, and he did miss that resource, deciding to give up the exchange instead. And now the move knight h6, right? Basically forcing the trade of knights in a tactical way. And once that happened, he wasted time taking with his king. We brought our pieces in, took a bunch of pawns, and the rest was very simple. The only thing I did that I want people to notice, centralize the queen, bring all the pieces in, create some look for the king, and use the pawns as a battering ram and as pieces and as pawns that are used to dislodge the pieces from their posts in order to get to some of these pawns. All right. Now the other way that we could have done that is like h4, h5 is also possible. I was gonna actually make this move in order to soften up that g6 pawn. So that is a technique you'll see very, very often in Grandmaster games. I call it softening up, right? Pushing a pawn out in order to isolate or weaken or open a file, something like that. Well, I live it and breathe it. So that is just something that you'll see left and right in top games. Okay, so any questions about this game? Any questions about, and of course I'm not showing the rest of it because it was really straightforward. And as I said, the higher I go, I won't keep repeating the very basics unless people have a specific question about it, okay? 1 sub to 20, yeah. 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 1 sub Well, oh, you are a sub, Mark Zuckerberg. I was gonna say, if Mark Zuckerberg wasn't a sub, we'd be in trouble. Okay, so this next game was that nice attacking game where we played the accelerated dragon, and then the move knight takes c6. What is an outpost? An outpost is basically like a square deep in your opponent's territory that is occupied by a bishop or a knight, generally speaking, and supported by a pawn. And it's generally unassailable. Thank you, Smasher 0311 for the prime. Okay, so this move knight takes c6 is a very typical mistake. Well, not a big mistake, but it is a mistake. Because after b takes c6, as I explained, d5 becomes easier. And essentially, that b file can also be used by our pieces. We actually saw that. Once we put a queen on b6, guess what? This file is open precisely because, well, I guess we put the queen in front of the pawn on b7, but you get the point. That b file is kind of important. I won't delve into the theory here, but basically knight c3 is one of the main moves, and bishop e3, white basically keeps the tension. Is d takes c6 passive? Well, d takes c6 isn't so much passive as it allows the queen trade, and you don't want your king to have no castling rights. So this is asking for some trouble. Black is not in terrible shape here. I mean, the king could find a little square on c7, but we have the chance here to, to have a really, really strong center. And this move, queen b6, is the crucial move of the whole game, stopping our opponent from castling, exploiting the weakness of the move f3. And then playing very practical, right? Not bothering ourselves with a bunch of this tactics, just playing bishop takes b2 and winning the rook, because we know that that's winning. We know that that is the simple way to do it, and we don't want to play with fire when that's not strictly necessary. Okay, and the last game we already looked at, so this was a nice finale for sure, but nothing extraordinary. I mean, we had the firepower to do it. And, it's always good to sack the queen, no matter in what position. But yeah, certainly ready to do the next set of speedrun games. If you guys are, just want to make sure that all questions, for the most part, are answered. What should white have done here after he stopped him from castling? Well, to be honest, he was already lost. In this position, he's already in huge trouble. I would say that if I were playing white, I would try to develop my pieces. And I would basically abandon the desire to castle short, and I would maybe prepare castling long. So I'd maybe do something like this and try to castle long. Now, castling long here is definitely dangerous. And by the way, d4 trapping the bishop, does it trap the bishop? White has a resource here, and that's maybe something that our opponent missed. Thank you, Skating Chocolate, for the prime. Appreciate it. Knight c4. Yeah, knight c4 counterattacking the queen. And we got a $10 donation from GM No Chance Ever. Superb instruction. Thank you for streaming Euro-friendly times. You're very welcome. Thank you for the $10 donation. GM No Chance Ever. So this opens up this square for the bishop on d2.